Guys, welcome back. By request, how would you go about training your power moves? So I already kind of answered this in a couple of videos, but I will basically give my opinion what you should do. So stretching, working out, very good to do, and you need all the basics down if you try moves. For instance, like I'm gonna give some example. If you want to do a 90, right? You have to be able to do a little bit the one hand handstand. You have to be able to do a good handstand. You have to be able to do a spinning handstand. Those are basics, and without these basics, you're gonna make it incredibly hard for yourself for no reason. So you can basically from day one train 90 if you want, but at the same time work at these basics, right? And the better these basics are, basically the better the move you are training is gonna be. So that means, for instance, for let's say halos, that you can at least do all the basic freezes and a little bit maybe the head spin, yada yada. So that's very important, because if you skip all that stuff and you just tries to raw train that move, usually either the results will not be that great or it will literally go nowhere and you're just struggling for no reason, right? You can always have fun and try stuff. You never know, maybe you're a natural at it. I got swipe like that. I just tried swipe one day and could do from day one swipe to 90 for some reason. So sometimes it works out. It depends on the person, of course, and also what foundation you already had before. So that out of the way, how would you train for your power moves? So the people that already mastered the power move do it differently than the people that still have to learn the power move. So let's say, so I kind of got the power moves already, right? So for me, it's very important to keep at it and try to do 10 rounds of the power moves that I kind of struggle with. And like for instance, now it's the flare. I didn't train flare for many, I just didn't train flare for a very long time actually. I also gotten a little bit out of shape with this, right? Now I can still do the flare and I can also combo the flare. But it's important that I keep doing this. For instance, now I train a lot of air flare. You should also try flare, and air flare back to flare, etc. And just keep doing that sometimes. Otherwise, you lose the move. So that's for the people that already got the move down on a decent and good level, right? So for the people that don't have that, and you need to do this move as much as you can, as many repetitions as you can, but also always combo your moves. Even if it's on a low level, try to do this both, right? So both comboing and training as much rounds as you can also. So in my opinion, if you can do 10 rounds of something, you got it, right? So if you can do, for instance, 5 rounds, you can argue, yeah, I got it, but in reality it's not. It's a lot better if you can push it to the 10 rounds. Now if you can do 5 rounds, you probably just have to train more, and sometimes like with flare or some heavy move, it's sometimes about breathing, so you have to figure that out. But it's about getting 10 rounds of whatever you can, and relatively easy, right? It's okay to struggle a little bit, but if you can do 10 rounds, you're good. So you gotta work on that. So it's not enough that you try, for instance, okay, I'm gonna try the hand glide, right, for an example, right? And I can do 4 rounds. That's not good enough. You need to keep working at it till you got it. Now then, after you you do this, that's a given. Then you also try to if besides quantity, you need also quality. So you need to always or at least sometimes film yourself and see how it looks, and see if you're happy with the results and if you can change it. Now this doesn't work if you try, for instance, let's say the flare or the halo, but you crash, right? Then you cannot really fix the shape perfectly clean halos because you can't do the move yet. But as you figure out how to do 2-3 rounds, it's not just about quantity, it's also about quality, of course. So also work on this, right? It has to look good. Yet again, stretching, all that crap, you have to do it, right? So always the goal is always to do +1. Now I'm gonna link actually in the description that video that I made about it, because it's such a great method that actually works. If you do this, if you use that method, you will keep improving your power move, or every move actually. But let's get back into it. So your goal is to do 10 at least of what you can do, but it's even better if you can push beyond that. Maybe go for 20, maybe go for whatever, like I remember for training a little bit, but I once did 40 swipes. Now that's nothing special. I prefer to do 40 flares or 40 air flares, but just saying, you gotta push it. As the game becomes more and more easy, make it harder for yourself by doing more rounds, and then basically you gotta play also, and this means, let's say we're talking about swipe, windmill, swipe, 90 swipe, whatever combo, you gotta do it. And the same goes with the flare, the windmill, whatever move you're training, right? Of course, if you don't have a lot of moves, you can only combo a couple. But let's say you can do the backspin and you can do the turtle. You're training for your turtle. Try to combine the turtle with the backspin or the windmill or some shit like that, right? So you gotta also do that. I have students that sort of got really stubborn and kept doing just the flare. And then the end result is now that they kind of have the flare, but they have a lot of trouble comboing it, right? It's better to sort of train all this stuff at the same time, as long as you keep your, the number of basically, that you keep on pushing. And what I did, for instance, with the flare, is I forced myself to do 10. And in training, I also said this in the other video, and this really worked. But it becomes, now I'm older and also a little bit more lazy, it becomes incredibly hard to do this. But back in the day, this is what I really did. I always forced myself, even if I didn't want to do it, I forced myself to do it every training, right? And then you keep the move up. Now, you don't really have to do this. It all really depends what your goal is, I guess. But try to get 10 of the move you're trying, right? Let's say it's, okay, the 90 is going to be a tough one, right? But hand hop, at least 10 hops or more, right? Preferably more. And every move is like that. So 10 is the key, the goal. But if you can do more, it's even better, right? And then combos with it. You need to be able to combo your move. It needs to be usable. It needs to be a tool, right? And why is that so important? Well, it's very simple. Because if you did 1 time 10 flares, for instance, or you can do a lot of flares and all you do is do the flare, then you're actually done. But by comboing it or using it as a combo move, you're going to use it a lot more. Plus, it's way more usable. For me, that's also always kind of the important thing, right? That the move you're practicing becomes a tool that you can use in any way you see fit. So that's what I suggest, guys. Work on doing as many rounds as you can, and work on, keeping it clean, of course. This is done with the camera, by the way. You sometimes, I had really moves that I always forced myself to keep my legs straight. Looked on the camera, my leg is bent, right? So it's important to catch that stuff. And sometimes you feel it and it looks good or you feel that it looks good, and then you look on the camera and say, nah, that's not the result I want, right? So it depends on the person. Some people like that sort of loose style where their legs kind of bendy and they still rock that power move really, really hard. And some of these guys actually very, very good. I personally, I kind of like it if it's done correctly, but sometimes I really don't like this, and not that I'm amazing at power, right? But yeah, guys, that's how you do it. Quantity and quality, but quantity probably comes a little bit first, because if you can do, let's say, 10 rounds, you can think, because this happens all the time, that I give tips to people and it really helps, but then the move is already over. For instance, with, like, let's say any move, right, head spin, and I say, look, you can do 2 rounds of head spin. I say, no, you keep your legs down, and when you want to spin loose, you tuck your legs in. And there's way too little time to think. But if you can do 10 rounds with relative ease, it becomes way, way easier. So quantity, yeah, you can work at it at the same time. It's also not wrong to get really, really clean from the start. But it has to be that +1 method, which I will link in the description. Because if you keep it clean, but still with the +1 method, it will be probably very good. Sometimes really hard to do that. That's why I say, man, sometimes it's not that bad to do quantity first and then later make the quality. Keep working at it. Now, final thing about power moves is that, you know what would be really good if you basically keep the same combos and the same moves and you practice this the rest of your b-boy career. Now, why is that? Well, at some point these moves become extremely easy for you, and by doing yet again that +1 method, you're gonna get insanely good at it, right? Which is a good thing, but it is just way too boring for at least me. I know some people that, you know, do the same combos for years and years and years, and yeah, I don't know. It's okay, I guess. I really don't like that, right? I always like to play around and just do stuff. If you can do 10 of the rounds and you can sort of play around with it, you probably can, you know, do something with it. So, and then, you know, work hard, don't be lazy. As, um, as far as, you know, like, young people should do a lot for power move, and that means also freezes, working out, doing all the right stuff, because it's so easy for them, right? Look at these Russian kids. Look at a lot of kids actually. Usually the kids very good at power move as long as they can train. So a lot of kids, like for instance in my class in Amsterdam, these kids, you know, I teach them something and it's too hard and they don't want to do it because it's so hard, right? So I always have to dumb it down really, really badly. But if there are kids that can train, and I had these students also, like one who even became the champ in Holland, right? If you have kids that can actually train, you know, they're going to be amazing because they have the best suitable body. But the older people, you know, it's a little bit up to you. If you just focus as much as you can on power, that's not wrong, but you know, your style will kind of suffer. The idea is, as you want to be kind of a good b-boy, you have to sort of work on everything, right? So that's my advice, at least, right? At least don't ignore totally the other stuff. Like when I train alone, like today, I usually just focus on doing moves. But if I'm with other b-boys, I sort of sometimes try to also do moves, but also really rock out with the guys, right? Because you also need that. And well, at least here in Europe, you know, like maybe you're amazing at power, but if you really can't rock a beat, they gonna kind of scoff at you, you know, like they don't like what you do. So it's good to do, you know, at least a little bit of that, especially if you're a little bit older. For the kids, I really advise to buckling down on power, because if you got it unlocked, you can even let it go if it's not your thing anymore, right? But well, you know, if you're like older, and I mean 25 plus or a little bit younger even, it's gonna be harder and harder and harder, and then I train my ass off to still do some stuff, right? So it's really up to you, of course, but this is my advice. See you next time.